And it's time now for Business with Kate Moody. Hi, Kate.
Hi, Monty.
So, we're talking about the EU outlining a major new global investment plan aimed at China.
Yeah, 300 billion euros is going into the EU's new Global Gateway project with a focus on green energy, health, and digital development. Now, for nearly a decade, China has been pumping money and resources into infrastructure projects in mostly poor countries around the world, expanding its own zone of influence. Brussels is now painting its investment as a more transparent, value-based alternative, which would help economies become more sustainable. James Vecina reports.
As China continues to extend its influence to all four corners of the world, the European Union has decided it's time to respond.
Global Gateway will mobilize 300 billion euros till 2027. It will invest around the world to support our priorities, that is the green and the digital transition.
A 6-year plan to strengthen the EU's supply chains through infrastructure projects while investing into the energy and digital sectors. In essence, Global Gateway is designed to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative, whereby Beijing is building ports, rail and road networks across the world, a 21st century version of the country's Silk Road, linking China to Europe, Africa and the rest of Asia. While the President of the European Commission didn't state the scheme by its name, she made clear that the EU wants to differentiate itself from Beijing's strategy.
We want to take a different approach. We want to show that a democratic, value-driven approach can deliver on the most pressing challenges.
China's been accused of strengthening its cultural and economic presence by pushing developing countries into further debt. In Africa, 1 in 3 building sites is Chinese, with loans sometimes repaid in natural resources such as oil or cobalt. According to data providers Refinitiv, over 2,500 projects have already been laid out, with a combined value of $3.7 trillion.
U.S. lawmakers are once again facing an end-of-week deadline to avoid a partial government shutdown. A stopgap spending measure, which was reached in September, funds government agencies until midnight on Friday. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said on Wednesday that good progress was being made towards a bipartisan agreement, although a group of hardline Republicans have now threatened to block any plan which allows for vaccine mandates. Congress also has to once again tackle the question of raising America's borrowing limit. The Treasury Department has said it may not be able to meet its financial obligations after December the 15th if the debt ceiling isn't lifted or suspended. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development has scaled back its growth forecast for the global economy. It's now expecting growth of 5.6% this year. That's down slightly from 5.7% in its previous estimate. The biggest risks include vaccine disparity and inflation, which is rising sharply around the world. The OECD sees inflation at around 4.4% this year. That's significantly higher than its last forecast, and it sees it peaking around 5% next year. Well, the chief economist Laurence Boone has been speaking to France 24.
Inflation is higher in the US than the eurozone for a couple of reasons. Let me quote a few reasons. Let me quote a couple. First, the way that the US and Europe have protected their economies during the crisis is quite different. In Europe, the focus was on jobs. In the US, the focus has been on household incomes. And that means that there's been a lot of discretionary stimulus in the US that has really fueled a lot more demand than in Europe. I think that that's one of the reasons. And the second one is what we're seeing at the moment is also labor shortages in the US, which are a little more acute. People need to find a job. You know, in Europe, people have kept their job. And when they look for a job, obviously, some of them ask for higher wages, and that's also fueling inflation.
Laurence Boone speaking to France 24. Well, Turkey's central bank has once again intervened in currency markets to try and stabilize the value of the lira. The currency, which has lost nearly 30% of its value against the dollar in just a month, did briefly rally today, but it is still flirting near record lows. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who has taken an unusually heavy hand in monetary policy, has again defended his decisions. Notably, he breaks with traditional economic wisdom that high interest rates help to battle inflation, and he has ordered a series of rate cuts this year, despite double-digit inflation. As governments around the world grapple with the question of reimposing travel restrictions, Fiji has opened its borders for the first time in more than 600 days. The first international holidaymakers since the beginning of the pandemic arrived on that Pacific island today, welcomed by traditional dancers in grass skirts. Tourism accounts for around 40% of Fiji's economy. But other countries around the world are worried about the impact of the new Omicron variant of COVID-19. The head of the UN's tourism agency said blocking travel was not the answer.
I also repeat our call for restrictions on travel to be a very last resort and for all governments to follow WHO guidance, which advise against such measures in cases like this.
America's labor market has been dealing with a shortage of workers, a problem that's now trickled over into the seasonal occupation of being Santa Claus. The agency HireSanta.com says it's seen a 121% increase in people or businesses hoping to hire a Santa lookalike this holiday season, but it says it has at least 10% fewer entertainers available. That's partly because the rather jolly persona tends to look for older, overweight men who are also at a higher risk of severe illness if they contract COVID-19. Many Santa stand-ins are taking the year off or have retired during the pandemic. Of course, Monty, when it comes down to it, on Christmas Eve, we really only need the real Santa to show up.
Oh, God, that is just part of the labor market I hadn't even thought about. All right, thanks a lot, Kate. That's it for now. Stay tuned for more world news coming up